The final voting method that we're going to look at in this course is the method of pairwise comparisons. This method will quantify or numerically measure the result of all the head-to-head comparisons between any two candidates. This is very similar to a round-robin tournament where everybody plays everybody else. Each head-to-head matchup, which is going to be referred to as a pairwise comparison, will involve looking at the candidates two at a time. In those matchups, the winner will get 1 point, the loser gets 0 points, and if there's a tie, each of them get a half a point. Now, easy enough, the candidate with the highest point total wins, the candidate with the second highest point total is second, and so on. Final point total ties are common under this procedure, and as with other methods, the tie should be broken using a predetermined tie-breaking procedure, or the tie can stand if multiple winners are allowed. Now, it's helpful before starting this process to know exactly how many pairwise comparisons you'll need to do. So in an election with n candidates, the total number of pairwise comparisons C that will be needed can be found by computing. C is equal to n times n minus 1 divided by 2. Let's take a look at that math club election one more time and figure out then who the winner would be under the method of pairwise comparisons. Now for this election you had 4 candidates, so the number of pairwise comparisons we needed to do would be 4 times 4 minus 1 divided by 2. So that would be 4 times 3 divided by 2, or 12 divided by 2, which would be 6. Okay, so ultimately we'll need to do 6 pairwise comparisons. Alright, so let's go ahead and record those 6. So A will have to get a matchup with B. A will have to get a matchup with C. A will have to get a matchup with D. B needs a matchup with C. B needs a matchup with D. And then finally, for our 6 comparisons, C will need a matchup with D. Now this is going to be very similar to that plurality with elimination method when we get to the last round if there's only 2 candidates. So each column will have the votes transferred to the person that is higher ranked on that preference schedule or preference ballot. So for instance, in the first column, A is ranked higher than B, so A gets C's 14. In the second column, B is ranked higher than A, so B gets C's 10. In the next column, B is ranked higher than A, so B gets those 8. In the next column, B is higher than A, so B gets those 4. And in the last column, B is higher than A, so B gets those 1. So ultimately at the end, A ends up with 14 votes, and if we add up all these numbers, B ends up with 23. Now remember in this election that you have 37 voters total. So a nice way to double check your work at the end is that these two numbers need to add up to 37. All of the voters need to be accounted for between the 2 columns. So at this point in time then, in a matchup between A and B, B has more votes than A, so B would be the winner of that head-to-head comparison. So maybe let's keep track of this all over here. Alright, so I would have A, then B, then C, then D. So B is going to get 1 point. And we're just going to repeat that process with all of these other matchups. So this process is a little bit more lengthy than maybe some of the other ones. Alright, so for A matching up with C, so A gets C's 14, C gets those 10, C gets C's 8, C gets those 4, and C gets that 1. So again, I'm going to have 14 to 23. C wins that matchup, gets a point. A matching up with D, A gets those 14. And then you can see since A is in the last place for all of these other columns, D is then going to get all of the other votes, just like we were finding with the other candidates. So this is going to be 14 to 23. D wins that matchup, gets a point. Now let's take a look at B and C. So in this first column, B is ranked higher, so they get the 14. C gets the next column with the 10, C gets the next column with the 8, B gets the next column with the 4, C gets the last column with the 1. So this is then going to be 18 to 19. C wins that matchup, gets a point. B versus D. B gets these 14. In the next column, B gets the 10. In the next column, D gets those 8. In the next column, B gets those 4. And the last column, D is ranked higher than B, so D gets that 1. Adding up these numbers, we have 28 to 9. So B wins that matchup, gets 1 point. Finally, in the last matchup, C versus D. C gets the first 14, C gets the next 10, D gets the next 8, D gets the next 4, and in the last column, C gets that 1. So this ends up being 25 to 12. C wins that matchup, gets a point. Alright, so then looking at all of these, then this one would then be your winner. And if I have to do the complete ranking, of first, second, third, and fourth. Okay, so C, which would be Carmen, would be first. The next highest point total would be Boris, B. The next highest person would be Dave. And then finally, Alicia didn't get any points. She didn't win any head-to-head matchups. She would be last. So since this is actually going to be our last voting method that we're going to cover, I want to take a look at this math club election and see who the winner was under every different method. Alright, so for this math club election, under plurality, if I just look at the winner, that was A, and my ranking then was A, C, D, B. Alright, so this is just kind of summarizing everything that we've been talking about so far in this section. When we went through the board account method, the winner was B, and our ranking looked like B, C, D, then A. Under plurality with elimination, the winner was D, and our ranking looked like D, A, C, B. And finally, under the method of pairwise comparisons, our winner was C, and our ranking looked like C, B, D, A. So I hope you're seeing then it is very important prior to an election to determine what method that you want to use to count the votes. Changing the counting method can ultimately change the winner. And not only that, it can change all of the rankings of all of the other places then moving forward as well.